Mother franchise is my favorite video game franchise ever. This is what you might hear a lot of people on the internet say, including me of course. I consider Mother 3 to be my favorite video game ever. Many fans consider Mother 2 to be the best in the franchise. Mother 2 didn't sell very well in America, so that is why the Mother series is Japan exclusive. However, thanks to Super Smash Bros. And the internet, the Mother series became well known outside of Japan. Thanks to the dedication of the fanbase, Mother 2 is finally going to be released on the Wii U Virtual Console in America and even in Europe. If we can prove how much we love this series, Mother 3 may be officially released in English. Please, make this happen. In celebration of Mother 2 finally being released for the Wii U Virtual Console, and for Mother 3 finally getting a chance at an official English release, I will review the overlooked origin of the Mother series, Mother1 on the Nintendo Famicom. Mother is an RPG developed by copywriter Shigesato Itoi and was released in July 27, 1989. It was inspired by the Dragon Quest series to its own RPG. The game was to be set in modern day America as a tribute to a movie Mr. Itoi liked called Stand By Me. Ape Inc. was a company founded by Mr. Itoi and they made the Mother series. What isn't well known is that after the company disbanded, the employees formed Creatures Inc., who are well known for making the Pokemon series. The creator of the Pokemon series, Tajiri Satoshi, even did a review for Mother in his magazine titled Game Freak, where he offered some insight into video games. Mother is also the first turn-based RPG which was a first-party Nintendo title. This game was also never officially released for North America. There are prototypes for this game in English, however. These are known as Earthbound NES or Earthbound Zero because the only internationally released game in the series is Mother 2, which is known as Earthbound outside of Japan, and fans needed some way of distinguishing the two games. Some changes in the prototype from the Famicom version are an extended ending, censorship of certain sprites, a screen flickering effect for certain parts of the game, and a run button. When a prototype was found circulating the internet on January 15th, 1998, the fan translation group Demiforce bought it with the intention of releasing the ROM onto the internet. For those of you who don't know, releasing the ROM or read-only memory onto the internet allows people to download it and play it on an emulator, which means you can play games on your computer. This, however, is illegal. The only changes Demiforce made to the game was to add a 0 to the title and a few extra changes to the game's code in order to bypass anti-piracy measures. Some have speculated that the prototype isn't official and was just a translation made by Demiforce. However, Phil Sandhop, the producer of the prototype, officially confirmed that this was his work. The game was finished and ready to be produced, but due to the fact that this was 1991, the SNES was already greenlighted as the successor of the NES, and the cartridges were expensive due to the fact that more cartridges with larger data storage capacity were needed. Do you remember Super Mario Bros. 3? Well, that didn't come overseas until long after it was released in Japan, due to cartridge shortages. Mario 3 needed more data than most NES games, but that was a sequel to the most popular game series of all time. When you take into account the reasons to which Nintendo wouldn't distribute this, I don't really blame them. The reception of this game in Japan was positive, selling about 400,000 copies. It was re-released on the Game Boy Advance in 2003, along with the sequel as Mother 1+2, which added some features of the unreleased prototype, and even further features, such as using the L trigger as a multi-purpose check button. The gameplay you're seeing is from the Game Boy Advance port. The game itself is a rather unique specimen. The objective is to collect 8 pieces of a song scattered through the world. When finishing the song, a truth is revealed. No crying until the end and guaranteed classic is the slogan of the game. Both were said in the advert of the game. It's rather interesting to watch, link to it in the description. People often praise Earthbound, Mother 2. Okay, I'll call it Mother 2 from now on. People often praise Mother 2 for things, such as taking place in rural America instead of medieval Europe. Instead of using magic, you use PSI, and instead of potions, you use food. Mother 2 is also praised for its sense of humor. All of these are also applicable to Mother 1. Before I move on, let me explain something. The Mother series is my favorite series of all time. I love each one of the games in the series, but I think that Mother 2 is given too much praise by the fans. I'm not saying that the fans are too loud or anything. No, the fans of the series have done amazing stuff purely for their love of the game. Who knows, maybe my opinion of the game will change once I replay it for my review of the game. I still consider Mother 1 underrated though. Not enough people like the game. Even a lot of fans of the series don't really like this game. So when I first played this game, I went in with low expectations. It definitely has its problems, but a lot of them are acceptable, considering that this was an RPG on the NES. The graphics are very basic. The buildings are basic to the point where they are quadrilaterals with doors and windows. The NPC sprites are mainly recycled, but this is a NES game, so I really can't blame it for recycled sprites. This game needs to contain a lot of data, so I can't blame the basic graphics. The cartridges were already expensive enough to produce, so they needed basic graphics. There are a few things which bug me about the graphics, which I can't let slide. The sprites for the main characters, Ninten, Anna, Lloyd and Teddy, are odd. Ninten's head is way too huge for his body. When Anna and Lloyd are facing towards the screen, it looks odd due to the fact that they are wearing only one colour. There's no divider between Lloyd's shirt and trousers, and you can't tell that Anna is wearing a dress. Teddy doesn't have any problems with his sprite. Despite the overworld sprites not being very good, the in-battle sprites are very good for Famicom standards. Despite the backgrounds just being black, I can excuse that, as the game was already pushing the memory limits of the Famicom as is. The enemies are surprisingly detailed. The graphics are very hard to give a grade to. I would give the overall graphics a 49 out of 100, and I would give the battle graphics a 70 out of 100. Keep in mind, in my grading system, 60 out of 100 is considered so-so. As with a lot of RPGs, the story is important. I'm not going to spoil too much of the story, so those of you who plan on playing the game for yourselves, don't worry too much. In 1908, a young couple mysteriously went missing. They were abducted by aliens. The man's name was George, the woman's name was Maria. Maria took care of one of the aliens' offspring, Giygas or Giygas or Giyg. I'm going to stick with Giygas as that's how it's said in Japanese. So while Maria took care of Giygas as if he were her own, George was studying the peculiar power of PSI while living with the aliens. Of course he stole the information from the aliens. Later on, back on Earth, George mysteriously returned. He never told anyone what happened and just studied PSI. 80 years later, George and Maria's great-grandchild, Ninten, is experiencing weird things in his house. Lamps and dolls are attacking people. After beating up a doll, the odd phenomenon stops in his house. He then decides to travel the world in order to stop the phenomenon, which is going on throughout the whole world. Here is one vague thing in the plot. It doesn't define how old George and Maria were when they were abducted. Young is too vague. They clearly had kids because Ninten is a direct descendant of them. Depending on what you consider young, George and Maria might have had a kid before being abducted. What happened to the kid while its parents were mysteriously abducted? Was the kid abducted along with its parents? Ninten's dad seems to know that George studied PSI, and since George never told anyone due to not interacting with people much, the only person who would have known would be his kid. When was the kid born? Since Maria is Ninten's great-grandmother, that means that the kid must have been born either before George and Maria got abducted, or while they were on the spaceship. Maria wouldn't have loved Giygas so much if her kid was on the spaceship, so the kid must have been left behind. Having her been separated from her kid would explain why she would show love for Giygas to fill the hole left from being separated from her own child. Which comes back to my original question of what did the kid do while his parents were gone? I suppose the kid must have lived with its closest relatives. I somehow answered my own question. That's what's great about the plot. You can figure it out if you think about it enough. I'm not gonna explain any more of the story because it's an RPG, so story is important. I don't want to spoil too much of the story, so I will cut it short here. I give the story a 100 out of 100. For an 8-bit game, the story is really good. Play it to find out why I gave it a perfect score. Now I can dive into the gameplay. Your party members each have their own unique attributes. Ninten has high stats in general, but the PSI attacks he has can't harm enemies. His PSI attacks are usually status effect in PSI, such as Defense Up, Quick Up, and Hypnosis. Lloyd the Nerd has lower stats than Ninten, but can use special weapons which are usually the equivalent of certain PSI attacks, such as the flamethrower being equivalent to PK Fire. Speaking of PSI, Anna is the main PSI user in your party. She has low stats with the exception of PP, but has good PSI attacks. I'm about to explain the PSI mechanic in the game, so if you know how it works, skip to this point in the video. Good, now I can begin. The more powerful a PSI, the more PP it drains. Obviously the higher level Ninten or Anna are, then the better the PSI they get. If you have the patience to grind, then you can get absolutely broken PSI with Anna. The main offensive PSIs are PK Fire, Freeze, Thunder, and Beam. There are different levels of PSI. They are Alpha, Beta, Gamma, Pi, and Omega. Only PSI Healing and Life Up have a Pi level. Omega level PSI is supposed to be the most powerful level, but in this game the Gamma level can be more useful than the Omega level. PK Freeze Gamma brings down an enemy's HP to single digits. PK Freeze Omega meanwhile gives huge damage to all enemies. PK Fire damages all enemies, making PK Freeze Omega useless. PK Fire Omega kills all enemies on screen. It drains a whole lot of PP though. PK Thunder Gamma is just PK Thunder Beta, but to all enemies. These elemental attacks do more damage if the opponent has a weakness to it, and less damage if the opponent is resistant to it. Did I already mention that this series was played by the Pokemon creator Satoshi Tajiri? There's also the PK Beam set of attacks, which do the same amount of damage regardless of the opponent's type. PK Beam Omega deals massive damage to all enemies, more than any non-PK Fire Omega attack. But keep in mind that it doesn't take into account of what type the opponent is, but PK Beam Gamma will instantly kill one enemy. It takes more PP than PK Freeze Gamma, so make your choices wisely. Welcome back, those of you who skipped my PSI explanation. Late in the game, you have a gang member named Teddy. With his incredible strength, almost nothing can stand in your way. He has no PSI, by the way. At the beginning of the game, Ninten rescues a girl called Pippi. You can only progress by making her leave your party. If you decide to grind for a bit, then you will find her attack stat to overtake Ninten's, with no equipment as well. An interesting fact is that in the programming of the game, her constant stat increases are the same as Teddy's. Most of the stat increases are determined by a random value, but there are some constant values which can help determine the stat increases. Starman.net has a page on the stat increase formula, so those of you curious should check it out. You increase your stats by buying weapons, such as baseball bats, air guns, and boomerangs. There isn't much variety in using them because the boomerang is able to be equipped by anyone, and it is one of the most powerful weapons in the game, so you will keep it until each character gets their ultimate weapon. Baseball bats are exclusive to Ninten, guns to Lloyd, frying pans to Anna, and swords to Teddy. By getting the boomerang as quick as possible for all characters, minus Teddy, you can cut down on a lot of grinding. Grinding is a big issue for most people with this game. My last playthrough was a low level run. I only had to do a bit of grinding twice. Once when I got Pippi, and once when I got Lloyd. I didn't grind for long though, max 30 minutes. On my first playthrough, I did a lot of grinding, so overall I found the game easy. Every time I replay the game, I keep going for lower and lower levels. Here's the trick to getting through the game. Run away, or at least in the final area of the game. If you fought every enemy through the rest of the game, then that is what you should do. The running away feature in this game is the best in the series. This is because every character has the option to run. If whoever has the greatest speed fails to escape, then someone else can try. If one person runs away, then the whole party escapes. In future games, you can only have the leader of the party run away, making running away a whole lot more tedious. Ninten even has a PSI which instantly lets you run away. By the end of my playthrough of the game, Anna had just learned PK Freeze Gamma, so it's possible to get through the game without relying on broken PSI. There's also a money making trick in the game where you can buy an item for cheap and sell it for a profit. You need the money to buy the equipment to increase your offense and defense. If a member of your party faints, you can visit the hospital to revive them for a revival fee. You can buy items at the stores, such as weapons and medicines. You can buy food in food stores, but the only thing worth buying is bread. You can choose to use the bread to start dropping breadcrumbs. If you select use on the breadcrumbs, then you will automatically backtrack to where you started to drop the breadcrumbs. But you have an item to warp to a certain area, which allows you to recover fallen allies for free, as well as restoring your health, so you can abuse this if you want to save money. So overall, grinding is not necessary at all. If you know how to play it, then you don't need to grind. In the Famicom version, Ninten and Party could only walk. In the unreleased prototype and the Game Boy Advance version, a run button was added. The thing is, I never knew that a run button existed in the Game Boy Advance version until doing some research for this review. It isn't bad that Ninten and company move slowly. An RPG isn't supposed to move quickly. It's supposed to make you pause and think what you're supposed to do next. There really isn't much more to say about the gameplay. It works like a traditional RPG. I already explained the PSI earlier, but if you still don't understand, it's like magic in other RPGs. But I find the PSI broken. My reason for this is because there are only 3 bosses in the game. The first one is the Starman Jr., which is pretty much a joke if you got the Franklin badge. The Franklin badge affects the PK Beam Gamma, which is an insta-kill move. The second boss is a dragon, which can either be really difficult or really easy. You can only battle the dragon when Ninten is level 25. You can fight the dragon as late in the game as you want to. If you fight the dragon by the time you have Teddy, or by the time you can use PK Freeze Gamma, then the boss is ridiculously easy. I usually fight the dragon as soon as Ninten reaches level 25, so I have Lloyd but not Teddy. I also don't have PK Freeze Gamma or PK Beam Gamma, which can both kill the dragon in one round of attacks. However, since I was going for a low level run last time I played, I happened to have Teddy around by the time Ninten reached level 25. I was surprised at just how easy it was, despite all my characters being far weaker than any of my previous playthroughs. The last boss, meanwhile, without giving away too much, it was much more difficult than any previous playthrough. Obviously. Not an unfair difficulty, it was a fair challenge. This was the only boss in this game which forced me to slow down and think very carefully on what to do next. If you are over leveled, then this boss is ridiculously easy. The guard feature is great for those times you need to make a tactical decision. The guard will halve any damage received from opponents regardless of whether you are faster than your opponent. I know I am not mentioning something very annoying about this game. Random encounters. The random encounters in this game seem very, well, random. Sometimes you can go for as far as a whole minute without running into enemies, and other times you can tap the D-pad as soon as you exit and there's a random encounter. I really can't say much about random encounters as it isn't anything that has really bothered me, as I need to grind anyway. I understand why some people get annoyed with the random encounters though. Also, some people get annoyed by the fact that when you attack an enemy with more than one party member, if the quickest party member defeats the enemy, then the other party members will attack nothing instead of attacking the next enemy over. I admit that this is a bad thing, as it adds unnecessary difficulty to the game. I'd give the gameplay a 71 out of 100. Now, as a general rule, I don't talk about music, but with the Mother series, I have to make an exception. I feel that the game is pushing the Famicom sound cards. These simple tunes have become iconic, such as the 8 Melodies theme, which was used in Japanese elementary schools at about 1992. The overall theme, Pollyanna, went on to become the theme which would represent the Mother series. The saddest point in the game is when you have Lloyd join your party, which changes the overall theme from Pollyanna to Being Friends. Updated versions of these themes can be heard on Super Smash Bros. Brawl. I'm not going to grade the music because, as I said in my Sonic 1 review, everyone has different taste in music. I just think that Suzuki Keiichi and Tanaka Hirokazu did a good job with the music. I understand that the game has its flaws, particularly with the overworld sprites and the enormous amount of grinding needed for newer players of the game. I feel like this game is underrated due to people playing the sequel first, due to it being the only official game released in English. When people hear of this game called Earthbound, they don't think that it's a sequel to a game, due to the lack of a 2 in the title. When people find out that Earthbound is called Mother 2 in Japan, they try to play the prequel, expecting Earthbound. People end up disappointed due to it being so much simpler than Earthbound. My defense to this is that the same is true with any franchise with games on the NES and SNES. Imagine playing Super Castlevania 4 and then playing any of the first 3 Castlevania games, expecting something like Super Castlevania 4. Or playing Super Metroid and then going into the original Metroid, expecting something like Super Metroid. Or playing Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, and then expecting Zelda 1 or Zelda 2, particularly Zelda 2, to be the same as A Link to the Past. There are exceptions to this, such as Super Mario World and Super Mario Bros. 3, or arguably Mega Man X and the classic Mega Man games. My point is that Mother1 was unfairly judged because most people compare it to Mother2. It still has a strange charm that no other game, not even its sequels, have. Perhaps it's how such a good story was weaved into an 8-bit Famicom game without interrupting the gameplay too much. I know I didn't dive into the story too much, but that's because it's supposed to be something that you encounter while playing the game. It's very difficult to explain what sort of charm this game holds. Despite not being an RPG fan, I still enjoyed this game. I am, however, a fan of retro games. I feel like this game won't be appreciated by people who care about the graphics, or don't have the patience to learn how to avoid all the grinding. People's opinion of the game changes depending on what sort of experience you have in gaming. My final score to this game is a 72 out of 100.